AITA for flying home alone and leaving a petty surprise after my girlfriend dumped me on vacation? There are moments that split your life in two, and they do not always come with a warning. Logan Reynolds had spent 5 years building a future with someone who, in a single night by the sea, decided that future no longer interested her. Anyone else would have collapsed. Anyone else would have begged, screamed, or drowned the pain in alcohol until losing count. But Logan did none of that. He got up from that table, walked to the airport, and activated a plan so precise that by the time she wanted to return to pick up the pieces, there was not even a door left to enter through. The sound of a suitcase rolling over the floor tiles. That is the first thing I remember clearly from that night. Not her voice, not her words. The hollow noise of the little wheels of her luggage moving away down the hotel hallway while I stayed sitting on the terrace with a glass of bourbon that no longer had any flavor. But I am getting ahead of myself. I need you to understand something before continuing. I am not one of those who break easily. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood in San Antonio, Texas, where if you do not hustle quickly, the streets will wear you down. My dad had an auto repair shop on a busy street, and my mom sold breakfast tacos outside the local high school. With that, they paid for my high school, and later, with a scholarship and some night shifts at a 7-Eleven, I got my degree in software engineering at the University of Texas. At 31 years old, I was already working remotely for a software company based in Austin. I did not earn millions, but my $85,000 a year was enough for the apartment I rented in the East Austin neighborhood, and to feel that life was finally paying me what it owed me. And then there was Brooke. We met at a mutual friend's Christmas party. She was 28 years old. She worked as a social media manager for a cosmetics brand and had this laugh that forced you to turn around to see where it was coming from. 5 years together. 5 years of Sunday barbecues at her mom's house in South Austin. Of television series marathons on the couch with our feet tangled together. Of arguments about who had finished the last Greek yogurt in the fridge, and of making plans that felt as solid as reinforced concrete. I bought the ring at a jewelry store in Dallas, an express trip I told her was for work, sapphire with rose gold details, because she always said that classic solitaires looked like they belonged in a catalog. It cost me $2,500, 3 paychecks of pure savings. And every time I took it out of its hiding place in my sock drawer to look at it, my heart beat so fast that I felt like the neighbors could hear it. The plan was perfect. I had booked 10 days at a beachfront resort in Maui, Hawaii, beaches, sunsets that looked like they were taken from an Instagram filter, but without the filter. On the 4th night, in the hotel restaurant, which was on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, I was going to get on one knee and ask her to be my wife. I had the speech practiced in front of the mirror as if it were a work presentation. Every word measured, every pause calculated. The first 2 days were like a dream you do not want to wake up from. We had eggs Benedict for breakfast overlooking the ocean. The water was that impossible blue that makes you doubt your own eyes, as if someone had turned up the saturation on reality. We walked barefoot on the beach, with the sand so hot that we had to run to the water every 3 minutes. We laughed like we had not done in months, the kind of laughs that make your ribs hurt and make your eyes tear up. She looked genuinely happy, radiant. I took a picture of her with the sunset behind her and thought, this woman is going to grow old with me. I am going to have kids with her. I am going to see how little wrinkles form around her eyes from laughing so much. Fool that I was. On the 3rd day, she decided she wanted to take a surf class offered by the resort. I have respect for the ocean. I know how to swim, but I am not one to go in where the waves tumble you around. So I let her go and went to the hotel gym. I ran on the treadmill watching the ocean through the windows, feeling grateful for my life, for what I was about to do. For everything. When Brooke came back, something was off. I could not explain it exactly, but it was like when you move a piece of furniture in your house, and at first you do not know what feels different. You just know something does not add up. She had this smile that was not her usual one. It was wider, more intimate, as if she were savoring a secret. And the cell phone. She would not let go of the cell phone. I asked her who she was chatting with. With Megan, from work. She is fighting with her boyfriend again. You know how it is. But I saw the screen out of the corner of my eye before she turned it over. It did not say Megan. It said a name I did not know. Travis. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the nerves about the ring were making me see ghosts where there was nothing. I repeated that to myself like a mantra for the next 36 hours. The 4th day was worse. Brooke went back to the surf class. 3 hours. She returned smelling of salt and coconut sunscreen and something else I could not identify. That night, I invited her to dinner at the seafood restaurant I had researched weeks before. One with paper tablecloths and a waiter who recited the menu from memory because they did not have physical menus. She barely touched her plate. She pushed the shrimp around with her fork as if they were chess pieces and looked at the horizon with eyes that were no longer with me. I took her hand across the table. She pulled it back, not suddenly, but with intention. It is the heat, my love. I am exhausted. You know how I get. That night in the room, I wanted to get close to her. A kiss, a hug, whatever. She turned her back to me, saying something about a headache and needing to hydrate. I lay there in the dark, listening to the crashing waves through the open window and the intermittent buzzing of her cell phone on the nightstand. I felt something cold settling in my chest, something as heavy as liquid lead, and I knew in that corner of your mind where you keep the truths you do not want to see, I knew that something was very wrong. The fifth day, the day everything changed. I had the reservation at the Cliffside restaurant, the ring in the pocket of my shirt. My hands were sweating so much that I wiped them against the napkin under the table every 30 seconds. We ordered a bottle of white wine that cost the same as a week of groceries, and I waited for that exact moment when the sun sank into the Pacific and the sky turned orange to start my speech. I never got to say a single word. Brooke put her glass on the table with a dull thud and looked at me with eyes I did not recognize. Eyes of someone who has already made a decision and just needs to say it out loud. I need to tell you something, Logan. Those words made the ring in my pocket feel like it weighed a ton. I met someone, his name is Travis. He is the surf instructor, and I do not know how to explain this to you, but he makes me feel things I have not felt in a long time. Her voice was trembling, but not from regret. It trembled with contained excitement, as if she were telling me news she thought was good. With you I am calm, I am comfortable, I am in my safe zone, but with him I feel like every part of me is awake for the first time in years. I was paralyzed. All around us, tourists were toasting. A band was playing at the next table, and the sun was setting behind Brooke's head, as if the universe wanted to mock my pain with a perfect postcard. I could only whisper, "What are you telling me?" And she looked at me with something that could be pity or relief. That it is over. Forgive me, I did not plan it, but I cannot ignore what I feel. Stay. Enjoy the vacation. The hotel is already paid for. Travis invited me to stay at his place for the rest of the week. 5 years. 5 years reduced to ashes in a restaurant overlooking the ocean, while a waiter approached with the dessert menu asking if we wanted to see it. She reached her hand out toward mine. I pulled it back as if it burned me. "I hope someday you can understand it," she said, getting up, adjusting her dress. "I really care about you. I hope you know that." And she left, her sandals clapping against the stone floor, and I stayed there alone with 2 glasses of wine, a basket of bread, and a $2,500 ring that meant nothing anymore. I do not remember paying the bill. I do not remember how much I left for a tip. I only remember sitting on the terrace of what was now only my room until 4 in the morning, with that little blue velvet box in my hand and dry eyes, without a single tear, because something inside me had frozen. It did not hurt in the usual way. I simply stopped feeling, like when they give you anesthesia before surgery and you see everything, but it no longer touches you. Dawn broke and the sky was painted pink and gold over the Pacific, and those colors felt like a personal insult. My cell phone read 5:32. I had not slept a single minute. Brooke's suitcase had disappeared. She must have come back to get her things while I was on the terrace, too cowardly to face me again. I got up, washed my face with cold water, looked in the mirror and told the guy in the reflection, "You are not going to be the sad guy who stays alone in a romantic resort dragging his misery around the pool. That is not going to happen." I grabbed my cell phone and looked for flights. There was one from Maui to Austin in 3 hours. I booked it without blinking. I packed my suitcase in 10 minutes. I threw the new shirt I had bought for the proposal dinner in the trash, the one I had ironed 3 times because I wanted it to look perfect. I looked at it crumpled in the garbage can and felt a brief pang, like when you rip off a bandage all at once, and then nothing. At the hotel reception, I made up a family emergency. The receptionist looked at me with that mix of professional concern and personal curiosity and wished me a good trip. I wondered if she already knew, If all the resort staff already knew that the girlfriend from room 214 was now staying at the surf instructor's place. Resorts are small towns, everything gets known. In the taxi to the airport, the driver put on music that sounded entirely too cheerful for what I was feeling. I kept looking out the window as Maui grew smaller, the palm trees, the green hills, the sea that shone as if nothing had happened, and I started drafting a list in my head, a very specific, very methodical list, with the same coldness with which I designed databases at work. Point 1. Change the apartment locks. The lease was in my name. Brooke never paid a single dollar of rent. Point 2. Separate the joint bank account we had for household expenses. Point 3. Pack up all her things. Point 4. Remove her from absolutely everything. Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime, the car insurance, everything. I felt strangely calm, like a surgeon who knows exactly where to cut. I landed in Austin at 1 in the afternoon. The heat of the asphalt hit me when I walked out of the terminal, and for a moment I thought I was dreaming, that none of what had happened was real, but the weight of the backpack with the ring slammed me back to reality. At 3 in the afternoon, an emergency locksmith was already at my door. A man with a mustache who smelled of metal and coffee. He charged $300 for a Sunday. Did it end badly? He asked while changing the cylinder. Something like that, I told him, and I felt an almost physical satisfaction when I saw the new locks installed. Brooke's keys, the ones she had hanging on that little cat keychain I gave her for our second anniversary, were now useless. The next thing was packing. 6 meticulous hours. Every piece of clothing, every lotion, every book, every scented candle she bought at the local market. Box by box, labeled with a black marker. Brooke's things. Box 1 of 12. I was careful. I did not break anything. I did not tear anything. I did not want to give her ammunition to say that I destroyed her belongings. I even wrapped the photos of us in newspaper as if they were museum pieces. There was a moment when I was emptying the closet that I found a sweatshirt of mine that she used to sleep in, the gray one, the one from college, the one that smelled more like her than me. I held it for a moment. Something inside me wanted to keep it, to cling to that piece of fabric that still carried movie nights and slow mornings, but I put it in the box. That is what you do when you decide to move forward. You do not keep crumbs of what was. You cut clean, or you do not cut at all. By 9 at night, I had 12 boxes stacked in the living room, and the apartment looked as if she had never existed there. Where her reading corner used to be, there was an empty space. Where her houseplants used to be, there were pot marks on the floor. The place smelled different, it smelled lonely, and for the first time in hours I got a lump in my throat, but I did not allow myself to cry. On Monday at 9 o'clock sharp, I called Steve, a lawyer I knew from a previous company. I explained the situation to him without emotion, as if I were making a bug report. Steve told me, "Come to my office at 3. We will resolve it." The hardest call was the next one. Mrs. Evelyn Lawson, Brooke's mom, the woman who taught me how to make her special chili, who called me her son, and who saved me extra portions at holidays. "Mrs. Evelyn, it is Logan. I need to tell you something, and it is not easy." I explained everything to her, just facts, no adjectives, no opinions. I heard her crying on the other end of the line. "Oh, son, I had no idea. She has not called us." Mr. Bob took the phone. "What do you need from us?" "I have her things packed, 12 boxes. I can take them to your house, or I can put them in a storage unit, but they cannot stay here." Mr. Bob's voice was firm. "Bring them. We are so sorry, son. You did not deserve this." I rented a truck from Hertz for $100 a day. I drove to South Austin that same afternoon. Loading and unloading those boxes was like dropping ballast. With each one I pulled out of the truck, I felt like I was breathing a little lighter. Mrs. Evelyn hugged me at the door. "You are a good man. She made a terrible mistake." Back at the apartment, I felt something I did not expect. Satisfaction. Not the satisfaction of revenge, but of having taken action, of not having stayed lying around waiting for her to decide when to return and what explanation to make up. Steve had already drafted a formal notice informing Brooke that she was not authorized to enter the property, that her belongings were at her parents' house, and that the joint bank account would be closed in 5 business days. The notice would go out via certified mail and text. I stood in the middle of the living room, looked at the empty spaces where her things used to be, and smiled. Not a happy smile, a smile of someone who took back control of their own story. Brooke was probably still in Maui taking pictures with Travis on the beach, thinking that I was in the apartment crying. Imagining that when she returned, we would have one of those dramatic conversations where she would explain herself through tears and I would end up forgiving her, or at least giving her emotional closure. She had no idea what was waiting for her. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the couch, our couch, my couch now, and allowed myself to feel the exhaustion. I had been awake for more than 40 hours. I had crossed half the country, dismantled 5 years of a shared life in less than a day, and the adrenaline was starting to loosen its grip. The following week was strange. I went to my virtual office, logged on right on time, delivered my projects. I went to the gym every morning. I started therapy with a psychologist that Steve recommended, a specialist in breakup recovery. At the first session, I told her that I was fine, that I had handled everything like a professional. She looked at me over her glasses and said, "Logan, you packed 12 boxes in 6 hours and did not shed a tear. That is not strength, that is anesthesia. The pain is going to come, and when it arrives, you need to be ready." I did not believe her. I thought she was exaggerating, but one night washing the dishes, I found a mug I had missed packing, a white mug with a cat that said, "You are my favorite person." I gave it to her on our 3rd anniversary. I held it over the sink, and something broke inside me. I did not cry, but I felt the emptiness. I felt the 5 years as a hole in my chest so deep that it was hard for me to breathe. I put the mug in a plastic bag, took it down to the building's dumpster, came back up, and poured myself a glass of water. That was it. Sometimes grief is like that. It is not a tsunami. It is a constant leak that you cannot stop. On the 8th day, my cell phone blew up. 20 missed calls from numbers I did not know, text messages I did not read, voice messages I deleted without listening to. I had blocked her number the day after I arrived, but she started calling from other phones at the hotel, from the cell phone of who knows who, maybe even Travis's. I did not answer a single one. All communication went through Steve. That was the boundary, and I was not going to break it. On the 9th day, the doorman of my building called me. "Mr. Reynolds, there is a young lady down here who says she is your girlfriend. She says her key does not work." I felt my pulse accelerate, but I kept my voice steady. "Her name is Brooke. She is no longer my girlfriend. She is not authorized to enter the building or the apartment. If she causes any trouble, call the police." "Understood, sir." That night, when I got home, the doorman handed me a manila envelope. Inside, a 4-page letter with Brooke's cursive handwriting. That handwriting that I used to find pretty and now seemed like the handwriting of someone I did not know. I threw it in the trash can without reading a single line. Whatever she had to say, apologies, explanations, pleas fabricated on the flight back from paradise, did not interest me. The facts were simple. She chose someone else. She destroyed what we had for a vacation fling. Now it was her turn to live with the consequences. Steve called me that night. "She contacted me. She wants to talk to you. She says it was all a misunderstanding, that the guy meant nothing, that she made a mistake." "What did you tell her?" "That all communication goes through me, that her things are with her parents, and that you have no interest in any contact." "How did she react?" "She started crying. She said she only wanted 5 minutes to explain." I closed my eyes. I imagined her in Steve's office, probably wearing the blouse she knew I liked, probably using that voice she put on when she wanted something. "Tell her no. Tell her there is nothing to explain." She explained everything perfectly at that restaurant. Weeks went by. The certified letter came back signed by Mrs. Evelyn. The legal documents were formalized. I changed my phone number, something I had been putting off because it felt too final, but final was exactly what I needed. I started going out with my friends again, taco nights in East Austin, football Sundays at my buddy Dylan's house. Life went on with a different shape, but it went on. A month after Maui, I was drinking an Americano at my favorite coffee shop in the South Congress area when I saw her. Brooke walking down the sidewalk with her mom, both carrying grocery bags. She looked haggard, thinner than I remembered her. Her hair tied up in a messy bun, without makeup. She saw me at the exact same moment I saw her. Our eyes met through the glass of the coffee shop. I saw the emotions pass over her face like fast-moving clouds. Hope, then desperation, then something resembling panic. She took a step toward the door. I calmly stood up, left a $20 bill on the table, and walked out the back door that led to the side street. I did not run. I did not rush. I simply left, because that is what you do when something is over. You do not give it oxygen. You do not give it a stage. You just leave. 2 months after everything, I accepted a dinner invitation from Jenna, a graphic designer I met at a networking event. She was funny, warm, and asked interesting questions about my work without prying into my personal life. It was not romantic yet, but when she laughed at a bad joke I told about programmers, it was a laugh without calculation, without an agenda, without a hidden motive. And it reminded me that there was life after betrayal, that the chest can feel again, that laughter can be light again. We had street tacos for dinner at a little food truck in East Austin that she knew, one of those with a plastic tablecloth and sauces in little bags. Nothing elegant, nothing pretentious, and exactly for that reason it felt good. It felt real. I drove home that night with the windows rolled down, the cool city air hitting my face, and I thought about how Brooke told me that Travis made her feel alive, as if being comfortable with someone were a flaw instead of a gift. She chased a fantasy of intensity and vacation passion and traded it for something real, for 5 years of building something worthwhile, for someone who bought her a sapphire ring because he remembered she preferred stones with history. I no longer hated her. I hardly felt anything for her anymore, just gratitude. Gratitude for having shown me who she really was before I put that ring on her finger. There are times when the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have ever happened to you. You just do not see it until you are on the other side, looking at the rubble from the outside and realizing that you are no longer among it. You are free. Comment: I really hope this story touched you as much as it touched me. One thing I took away from it is how important it is to hold on to your self-respect. Setting clear boundaries is not cold. It is actually an act of self-care. Taking responsibility for your own healing shows real inner strength. Sometimes choosing to walk away quietly is the most powerful decision you can make. I truly believe we all deserve relationships that bring us peace instead of pain. Be kind to yourself while you're going through the healing process because it takes time. Learning to choose calm over chaos is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Never forget that your worth doesn't depend on how someone else treated you. I hope this encourages you to protect your peace and build a life you genuinely love. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.